The ego overview. So the will center, the heart, willpower. It's that little red. Well, this here it's yellow, but in the book it's the red triangle. But anyways, only got four possibilities for activation. So it's not as defined in the world as you might think, even though it's right there in the middle of it all. Uh, the will center embodies willpower, self-worth, material desires, and successes. Um, and drives passion and action towards these things. Yeah, I'll go along with that. Other themes of the will center and the G center are, I mean, of the heart center are doing it because you said you're going to do it. Doing it even when you didn't want to do it, and then feeling good about it. You know what I mean? Even though you didn't want to, but once it's done, they get a reward. Getting an ego reward, bragging, wanting to brag, and brag is like pick a different word than brag, but it's say the thing that you did.
Yeah,
You know,
feeling that sense of like satisfaction of like, hey, I did the thing, I participated, I put effort into a thing that was hard in whatever way, and we did it, and yay.
right, and yay me. And so
Yeah.
don't ever let anybody tell you that you shouldn't be saying yay me or you're bragging too much. You're not. You're supposed to do that. Um, Physical association. It's the heart, the gall, the thymus gland, the stomach, and that's why it's part of the digestive system. Each gate 21, the heart muscle itself, gate 26, the thymus and the home of the killer T cell, the ego T cell, not on my backyard. You know what I mean? That's what it says. Get out of my tribe. That's what the killer T says.
Oh,
Um,
hell yeah.
Yep, yep. Gates 25 is basically this gall. 51,
Everyone
the
that
gall
connects
to
to
leap.
25.
Yep, yep. The gall to leap. The gall's to say whatever. I mean, actually, it's really that's good. That's a good thing for it. And then the stomach itself, because 40 gate 40 is basically it's if 37 is sort of the mouth that feeds and says affectionate things. 40 is the stomach that takes in the sustenance from 37. So yeah, powerful center. It keeps its commitments, or it wants to. And by the way, if it doesn't keep its commitments, guess what it does? Hey, I couldn't do it. Sorry, but you said you would. Yeah, I know. But I couldn't do it. They'll just say it. You know what I mean? Because they're not worried about their own self worth. But
With that defined or which one?
yeah, when it's defined, I've
Yeah.
seen defined egos just tell you, yeah, I screwed it all up. So you said you do the thing. Oh no,
Yeah.
I thought I would, and I didn't. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
we
I
need
try
that
so
ego.
hard to not commit to anything unless I'm, like, legit committed. Like, "We'll see. We'll see. We're tentative. I'll get back to you."
Think of what the ego does. It puts its shoulder to the wheel. The
Mhm.
ego built the temples. Ego also made sure that it had its rest. The ego needs its reward ratio. That's what Gate 40 is all about. Deliverance. That moment of transition in between where you're liberate, moment of liberation between the struggle and the rest. And it's deliverance, and it just wants to be delivered from one to the other. So the ego demanded on shorter work days.
Mm.
Poor dumb generators, we were all going to slave 18 hours a day, and we did. Ego's like, oh no, 12. Now that we're at 12, 8, you know, 8,
It's
final.
true. It's true.
We'll do
Like,
some
the will
overtime.
well, the
We'll
will
do over.
center, it's like the will center could rally. Like,
Yeah,
"All right, we need to do this. Okay, I'm the only one who could do this. No one else can do this." Like, "Okay, you sure?" Like, pad the will, like, fluff my
right,
feathers a little bit and like, "All right, Imma rally and, like, I'll get that shit done, but then, like, leave me alone afterwards." Like,
right.
Imma go lay down and make sure,
Yeah.
like, you're only bugging me because it's, like, really worth my while and I'm the one who can do it. Not that, like, you got 10 other people who are available. Like, don't bug me with that.
Yeah, it's just such a powerful thing, and people around the egocentric can be made to feel less worthy. And we're going to read that on some of these things. So we better read through the bullet points.
Yeah. All right. Shadows, low expression, scarcity mindset. This is all for the undefined ego when it's white undefined in your chart. So, scarcity mindset feels a lack of control in getting what they desire, a need for validation, seeking external approval to prove their self worth. that need to prove, like undefined wills, if you ever feel the need to prove something, just don't.
Just don't.
Just please don't. You don't
Yeah,
have
let the
to.
ego people do it. That's their
Yeah,
job.
exactly. Just let us.
Right.
We got it. Focus on deficiency, believing they need to improve to be worthy. Again, needing to prove themselves. It's like, please stop trying to prove
Proven
yourself.
worthy.
You
Proven
like
worthy.
it's like they just end up looking silly. Like I don't even want to be like a jerk, but it's just like when you see that undefined will that's like all fluffed up and they're trying to prove themselves, and it's just like, oh my god, can you please not and just like let me handle it. Competitive drive, pushed by a need to be the best and avoid failure, constant self-proving, expending energy, demonstrating their value, forced discipline, enforcing rigid discipline to maintain control, like they're trying to like overdo it, overcommitment and burden, making excessive promises leading to self pressure. And then that like hurts their hearts of just like if you have the
Yeah.
undefined will, like you don't have consistent energy to will through and prove yourself. So if you're trying to commit to something that you can't commit to and you won't be able to, like you're setting yourself up for failure and you're hurting your heart. Like just don't make commitments. Be like, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. And you've got a motto for the Undefined Center, and it's a very simple motto. It's I've got nothing to prove. I mean, it really is I have nothing to prove, and I take that home profoundly. Got nothing to prove. Big time. And the thing is, you'll prove plenty of things because you're open to what proof is any good. You know, you're open to what would be the right thing for you to even bother to prove. And it's not proving it at the same time, even though it may be. Dude, I'll get that done. I'll prove it to you. That's not, maybe you did. That may be an appropriate statement for an open ego person if they're empowered, if that's what their strategy and authority had them doing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And they felt individually empowered in that moment because it's their thing. Okay, that but rarely, open ego people might get things like stage fright, you know what I mean, and not think they can play live their instrument or what else, just various anxieties will come on about not feeling worthy, but you've got nothing to prove. And here's another good one. I see it a lot that the open ego, it can do this thing, this self-torturing thing where somebody you do a thing, right? You're open ego, you got this thing, you do a thing, you see someone else doing a similar thing and it's better, or you think it's better, or you're concerned they're going to be better than you. And how come they can do that thing and I can't? Or how come they started doing that thing? What if they become better than me? So all that kind of self-talk, you don't care. You don't care. As a teacher, I should, as a teacher in a seven-centered world, you know what I mean, just business only, I should seek to keep my students down a little bit, only give them
Mhm.
enough. Don't let them get smarter than me. That's what a lot of the big gurus do, still to this day, right? All the no mind people and so forth. I've seen that kind of attitude
Mhm.
come out. It's crazy.
Mhm.
It's absolutely insane because if you've got an open ego, then it's like I need you to be big. That's what you should be telling your students. Get bigger than me. I got nothing to prove. I've got no ego to bruise. Oh, you look stupid, Dan. The other person was better than you. What's the matter? You're not good at them, as good as them. Apparently, that they're really good at what they do. This is great. I like that they're being big.
Uh-huh.
Good. Yeah, instead of, like, feeling all that self-doubt in that moment, right? Where someone tried to call you out and you could be so embarrassed or try and change the subject or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Uh-uh.
There's
Lean
always
in.
somebody better.
Yeah,
Like,
lean in. I got nothing to prove.
yeah. And it
Nothing to
feels so much better too. Like, I mean, as like, I mean, I have the defined will, so it's like I'm a different thing. But like feeling undefined will people, like
Mhm.
you saying that, you're like, I got nothing to prove, like groovy gravy. Like, yeah, some people are better than me. Like, I'm glad I taught them and they are better than me. Whatever. Like having that attitude feels so much better than the undefined will people that get so like, oh no, 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 no. And they like get big puffy chests and they try to like just like
They're no
really
good
like
at competing.
yeah.
I've never met an open ego that actually wants to compete. I mean, occasionally, right?
Yeah.
Their friend comes up and says, "I'll race you to the store." Okay, that's perfect. That's two people just being alive. But I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like this competition. You know what I mean?
The
Sales.
insecurity and stuff, that weird energy where it's like so you can feel that somebody is somebody doing something because it's correct for them and it lights them up and like that energy is flowing, or if it's like, as you said, that comparison, that insecurity, and if they're acting from that place of insecurity to try to prove, it's just like it's just cringy and uncomfortable compared to
Mm,
you're like, dude, I'm cool, I'm good. Like there's people that are better than me and like God bless them. Like that just it feels so much better for you, for me, for everyone.
it's so true. Got nothing to prove. Remember that.
Mhm.
Excuse me. What were some of the rest of the words? We probably said most of them,
So
right?
the undefined ego center, the high expression, self-worth fluctuations, experiencing inconsistency in their sense of value and being okay with it. Like being okay with like, hey, that's something that's going to fluctuate because you're feeling it from other people, right? And like
Yep.
from the planets and stuff. So sometimes you're going to feel really like, rah rah, and other times you're going to be like, I'm chill, and like just roll with
Knowing
it.
your
Like,
limitations. Knowing your
yeah,
limitations.
and
Yeah,
everyone's got
that
their limitations. So it's like even if like you have an undefined ego, you got this other thing defined that somebody else doesn't have. Like, let us all be different and like unique because then the world is better.
Moni,
So
I was in music school at Berkeley. I went to Berkeley College of Music in Boston. I was supposed to be in film scoring. Classical pianist I was, a bunch of things. Lots of fun. By the time I graduated, there were so many cats at Berkeley College of Music. There were so many people there that were way better than me. They could write a score in 10 minutes or an hour, and I would take days and days at it, just because that was just my way. They would do, there was just a strong people that were a lot better than me, and I suddenly realized, wow, I'm pretty good, but I'm also mediocre. And so I started to try and get some work in the field, and I just remember quickly I realized, dude, these other cats that graduated way ahead of me, they're gonna snap up all the jobs. I quit. I quit. And if you have an open ego, you're a great quitter. And you've got to learn to say, I'm healthy. I love me, right? I didn't actually quit. I stopped. I stopped. I didn't want to anymore. Anyone could have called that a quitter. And with the language I have about me, with the reply would be, "What the hell are you talking about? I didn't quit anything. I stopped.
well, and like you shifted gears.
I shifted. I
You
went,
did something
oh,
different. Like
you
it,
weren't good enough. You couldn't do the thing you would." No, actually, I wasn't. I was entirely mediocre in a pond of certain people that were like freaking savant players. You know what I mean? They could write a score in freaking 20 minutes. You
when you
know?
find whatever else that like does light you up, that is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
It's like you can only have so many hobbies. Like you can go to school and you can have a job and you can have like two hobbies, right? Like
I
that.
would have suffered. I would have
You
suffered had I
yeah,
continued
like
to try and get jobs in the film scoring music industry back in the 90s. I would have suffered and
and we
suffered
wouldn't
hard.
have you here with us now. And I prefer that personally in my own
I did
selfish
too.
manner.
Yeah. Thank you, Moni. Me too.
Yeah. All right. So, worth inherent. Their value is intrinsic and not dependent on external validation. Deserving by being. They're worthy simply for who they are, regardless of feeling. They
Mhm.
enjoy the game, embracing competition for the challenge, not just to win. Right? That's the thing, right? Like playing
Mm.
like competition is for so much more than winning. Like, yeah, learn how to win, but also learn how to lose. Like
Yeah,
that's why
yeah,
you
yeah.
like do that as like little kids and you shake hands afterwards and you do that because it's like you need to learn how to win gracefully and we need to learn how to lose gracefully because like, hey, you're not gonna win everything. And like if you could do it gracefully, then like you got more opportunities and you're just a better person, a better, more ethical person of like, hey, that person's better and like good on them. And I'm glad that we're increasing who can do what and that people are better.
It's so true. If you got this open ego thing and you are competing, suddenly you find yourself competing, it's the right competition. And it's not really to even necessarily to win half the time, it's like against somebody. It's just to do good. It's to see how you did. Open ego people, one of the good bullet points here would be that they didn't mind seeing how they did.
Mm.
I jumped in, I hopped in the race. I wanted to see how I would do. Not necessarily to win, and if you win, that's good.
Effortless manifestation, attracting desires without forceful pursuit, let it come to you. Discerning promises, makes mindful commitments with flexibility for change. I'd even say for undefined ego people, like I'd rather they just not make commitments. Like one of my cousins,
Yeah,
like she always
don't
she'll
do
want
it.
to hang out and she would feel bad because she'd like try to make a commitment and not be able to. I'm like, girl, let's make it tentative and we'll check back in and like not holding her to that because she doesn't have that consistent commitment energy. So like I don't know, like Why
Think of
bother? If you
where the
don't have to commit,
punishment is.
don't commit.
Think of where the punishment is in our language. Our language, actually, by the way, has got to get retooled, just generally speaking. Even the contraction I apostrophe LL says I will. When no, you won't, or maybe you will, maybe you won't. You don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, unless
If
you
it,
got the 2145, that's the only voice that is "I will."
right, right. It's I possess, and it's I have or I don't have.
Mhm.
Um, and so every time you say I will, I'm gonna, that's the ego trying to be an ego, yet you're an undefined ego. You may not. You've seen it a bunch of times. So you can stop being the great quitter now and just realize you can start whatever the hell you want. Please do. And when it didn't work out, you don't quit. You stop. You shift. That's what your 5-year-old self would have said, or your 4-year-old self when someone came along and said, "Hey, you were just building the treehouse. Why did you quit?" If you had the language for the adult, the dumbass adult who asked that question that way, you'd say, "I didn't quit, you freaking tool. I stopped." You know.
I
But of course,
changed gears.
you're 4, so you can't quite say that. But that's all you do. You stopped. Just get used to that and have it be okay. Otherwise, you will feel like a quitter, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, the final one is integrity and alignment. Aligns actions with promises to maintain integrity.
Mm. Yep.
Like, yeah,
Yep.
because that's
And
the thing too, is like when I've seen like undefined will people, when they're in a weird place and it's like insecure and they're trying to like prove themselves, like to me that reads typically is like lacking integrity and lacking honor because they're coming from a place of like low self-worth, of insecurity in themselves or in their resources, and them trying to prove it, like it usually leads to them acting untoward, and it leaves a bad taste in the mouth.
I
And like,
promise is another phrase. You don't. You can't promise. Open ego people, promises are lies.
yeah,
Not every single time, but all too often.
yeah,
All
I'll
too often.
I'll try.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you.
Or
Tentatively, let's plan for this and let's check back in. Like that's what I do with all my undefined will people. I'm like, I ain't holding you to no commitment.
think of how mad you were before you knew human design at people who didn't do the thing. They
Yeah,
said they would and they don't. They said they would and they
yeah,
don't. They
yeah,
said they would over. Oh.
yeah.
And now it's like, well, I am still a little bit annoyed because you said you would like 100 times.
Well,
You
I
ever
just don't
did.
hold them to it. I hear my
Yeah.
my undefined will people who like say they will do something. I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, yeah.
And I don't get
Yeah.
mad at them or nothing. It's just like, we'll see.
We'll
They're in
see.
a low place and they're like, I'm never gonna do this again. And it's like, yeah, okay, let's see. And then like two
I
weeks later, they're like,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
it's on, we're
quit.
doing it.
Yeah, Rob would make jokes. He's like, I could have made a lot of money in the quit this or quit that business with the open ego people. They'd come into my office and they'd pay me a lot of money, and then I'd tell them, "You can do this, you can quit," and I'd pump them up with my big fat ego. He would say, and as soon as they left, they'd be in tears. Why can't I do it anymore?
Yeah,
Just it's don't find yourself there. It's not what's important, and that's who you're not. So
yeah,
healing undefined ego centers shadows. I trust that I am worthy of my desires, that I am worthy, General. I know I am worthy and I've got nothing to prove. Um, Regardless of fleeting self doubts, yep, they don't matter, and welcome them freely all the way through. So just keep realizing that you trust that you don't have nothing to prove. You're inherently worthy. We got a pass. I have open ego too. We got given a huge pass. It's the ego people that got to do all the work. So, in that area,
yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. That's a great way to look at it. It's like you're off
my,
the hook. It's not your
you're off
thing.
the hook, dude. Yeah, and it's hard to let ourselves off the hook with that one, right? Because it feels like a cop out or something.
Well, and you're
You know,
feeling the energy from everybody else. So you're feeling this guy who's like with a pumped up will center, and this chick over here with a pumped up will center. And then it's like, oh, 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 and like thinking it's theirs or thinking they got to keep it up. And then like they're out of aura and they can't, where it's just like you're feeling other people's. It's like, it's the same as like me being around like a generator and feeling that buzz. And like for a
yeah,
little bit, I can be like, hell yeah, I'm doing all this stuff. Oh my God, I'm getting so much done. And I'm like, oh,
right,
this
um,
isn't my energy. It's the same
right.
thing, but just in that will center kind of way of just like, yeah, like feel pumped up for a little bit and like feel really good and like enjoy it. But like you're getting high on someone else's supply. So like don't think it's yours and that you can take
Or
it
the
with you.
muscle memory of them, and let's say they left. but they put that ego in you all day because you were together, and they left, and you took on a little project. You had the muscle memory of that type thing, or
Oh,
just
that's a
because
good
it's in the
one.
world. So we all have to realize we have the memory of all of these centers, every single gate, every line, all of it, because it's all in the world. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Some are more profound than others, depending on who you've been around and what their charts are and all, but they're all there. My value is independent of financial
Mm,
success. Almost can stop there, allowing me to pursue goals freely, embrace a more open-ended path, or just more different path, the path that lights you up. It's everything. It's about what lights you up, even if it's
mhm.
only a little more than what lit you up before. That was a really good one, by the way. That was really good. But it's like it's independent of what you have for money, what you have for stuff, what you can prove, because you don't feel like proving it. Just recognize you don't feel like proving it. You don't feel like it. You don't want to, and that's true. Let that be true for yourself.
Define ego center when that's filled and colored in on your chart. The blocks and low expressions. There can be a fear of judgment, worries that their desires will be seen as selfish or manipulative, pricing concerns, hesitates to charge a fair value due to fear of disapproval, right? Or it's the thing where it's like the undefined will project on the defined will, like, oh, you can do this for me. Why won't you just do it for me? And there's like an expectation on us.
Yeah, there.
Yeah, imposter syndrome, doubts capabilities despite knowing their worth, guilt.
How about imposter syndrome tries to grab the successful accolades before they're due? That
Yeah.
imposter too. They try to, they only have a little bit, but their ego makes them puff up and think they got it all, or can seem to only have the surface.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
Imposter.
Yeah. Guilt of desire, feeling selfish for wanting more and achieving goals. Yeah, that could definitely be a thing of just like, people kind of being maybe a little judgmental and then you're feeling a little guilty that like, oh, that you can
That's
do
so
it or that
hard.
you are doing something.
Yeah.
Uh, Forceful manifestation, pushes aggressively to get what they want. Yeah, that could be a thing.
Yeah.
The will is a powerhouse. Sometimes you forget how strong it is. Desire shame, suppresses desires due to shame of wanting more. Unhealthy competition, uses competition to prove power, not for growth.
Right.
Selfish imbalance, can be excessively selfish, overgiving, and like lacking balance. Yeah, that could be a thing.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. All these things, the blocks and the expressions of this defined ego. The ego wants to roar, and it really wants to roar with what feels good to it. That's what's important to know. That's what the ego actually wants. That's what it's here for. When you have a defined ego and you realize you do, what you do is you end up doing the work that feels right. You end up getting the rest that you deserve. And the other thing too, ego people do generally, if you add up all the ego people and all the open ego people, the ego people make more money, generally
Mm,
speaking, if they have a capacity to ego basically manifest and advocate for what they need, and then the boss on the other end is looking at that, and they're recognize, oh, that's, I don't want this powerful person to necessarily leave. I'm going to consider it, and the
mm,
opening the person will be afraid to even ask.
mm.
I'm not
And you,
worried.
and
They might
yeah.
fire me. Right.
And that ability of just like ego people, it's like we have nitro boost. Like I
Yep.
will done that no one else can get done when it's like right for me, not everything, but when it's like very specific things of like power through and like get that thing done. And so doing the work that's appropriate, that's appreciated, and then it's like I'm in and out. I'm gonna do my thing and I'm gonna go away and I'll help you. Don't expect me to do all of it.
Right.
But
Right.
like, yeah, we can like nitro boost.
Yep. Love that.
And especially if we're in a good place, like we will also amplify the other undefined will to be in a good place, to like take care of your will so other people are feeling that. So we got a question here from Glam Rogue. Just curious, for people who are perpetually in survival mode, resisting inner work unless it immediately makes money. Like the value is there, but life challenges don't wait until you figure yourself out. Of
Do
course.
know. I know what they're
Or do
saying. I know
Okay.
exactly what you're saying.
Oh, okay,
And
sorry.
what I'm gathering is that, what I'm gathering is you're a little bit on the younger side. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I shouldn't go out on a limb like that, but it's just what you're talking about is these challenges, that the challenge is being who you're not. That's the real challenge. That's the challenging life. That's not a fun challenge at all. that leads to decay and despair. Everything that you just pointed out here makes me think you're a 3420, and you think that you're always busy on the cross of industry, maybe, or something, or a phoenix, and always, always thinking that you have to do the next thing. The challenges that are there, are only challenges because you said so. Not all. There are certain challenges you gotta rise to, you know what I mean? But more often than not, they're not. They're not life-threatening. That doesn't matter if they were today or tomorrow, and you can look back and find you spent a lot of time on things that didn't matter about that. And so were the challenges true challenges, or did you just have an open route and wanna keep going and powering through because you figure you can get to the end somehow? Open route people always think they can get to the end. There is no end, you know? Right, except death.
Yeah,
So so,
don't wrestle
I mean,
with it.
people are particularly in survival mode with that.
Take it slowly, we're just like, again, we overestimate what we can do in a day and underestimate what we can do in a year. And we'll get really overwhelmed because there's like a million different things happening. And it's just like, all right, if this is too big, cut that in half. And if
Right.
that step is too big, cut it in half.
Yeah,
Like you don't need to figure out everything all the time. You don't need to have all the answers. You never will. Like our minds can literally not process the amount of data and information that is out there, so that's where human design is really helpful because it's just like giving the mind a break and like turning it into the body of like, hey, what does my body feel? Right. So depending on like this person's chart, it was just like, do they have splenic awareness? Right. Or are they sacral? Or is it emotional where it's like up and down? Right. Where it's like try to slow it down and like take things in smaller bites and just like take it as it comes. You don't need to figure out the world. You don't need to, have every answer. Just take things as they come. And if it's too big, cut that step in half and make it smaller, you
cut it now.
know?
Well, so oh, you are so
Welcome.
welcome. Yeah, no, it's not as bad as you think, Glam
Yeah,
Road. It really isn't. So hopefully you got our information. I mean, I can prove that to you, me with nothing to prove. But if you allow me, we will show you. It will be great, and you're gonna feel it, down deep. So
cool. So defined ego in the high expression, manifestation magnet, designed to attract and fulfill your desires, desires with purpose. Your heart's desires serve a greater purpose. The power of no, setting boundaries and saying no empowers you. Right? Don't commit to things that like you don't actually want to do because that will hurt us. Like that hurts your heart, that hurts your energy. It just makes everything weird. So just like defined ego people, like don't commit unless like your heart's really in it because it just messes us up. Be like, I'll get back to you. Unshakable worth
yeah,
possesses a constant sense of inherent value, integrity in action, keeps promises and honors their word, right? So it's like, don't make promises unless you can really promise it, and then honor it when you do.
yep.
Um, Confident and worthy exude self confidence in their value. Healthy boundaries maintain strong boundaries when following through on commitments, and serves with desire. Desires fuel actions that benefit both themselves and others, right? Like that's the whole thing with like a good negotiation, right? Like if it's like one person who's like, I'm going to use it so I can do well and like make lots of money, like that other person's going to be like, shove off, like I'm going to do something else, right? Like that's not a good negotiation, right? The best negotiations are like, hey, I got this idea and this is how like you could be part of it and this is how it's going to benefit you, right? Like those good negotiations that where both people benefit, like that's some good quality will right there.
I mean, that's an ego thing to do. Make
Yeah.
sure the other benefits.
Well, it's like the 40-37, right?
Mm-hmm. Make
Healthy
the other benefit.
boundary
Yeah.
serves through desires. Desires fuel actions that benefit both themselves and others. And then inner focused competition strives to be their best self and not just to outdo others. Yeah, right. It's like my only competition is like myself and like where I want to be at and like taking care of myself and like rest your will and like only commit to stuff if it's like really what you want to do.
And the last thing about the ego that I will say in this whole thing that we didn't really touch on enough of, um, before when we talked about the throat center, we notice all the streams of awareness except two go to the throat center. Everything seems to dead end and terminate there where manifestation takes place. It's except for the tribal stuff that goes straight to the ego.
Hmm.
The ego is its own temple inside the body graph, and it's powerful.
Hmm.
Um, And so everything about the ego is a sensitivity to the right amount of supportiveness for the tribe, such that the tribe will thrive and survive and thrive. And it's the tribe fiercely loyal is the ego, a
Yeah,
healthy ego. Uh, um,
yeah, it's the blood.
yep, it's as if it's a blood bond. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And the demanding of loyalty back, so that you can sort
mhm,
of sense when the other isn't.
mhm,
um, the supportiveness of a tribal setting to be able to stand up and help the other guy when they need it, because you'll know you'll need it at some point.
mhm,
Instinctiveness and smell.
yeah.
These are important because in the tribe, you're up close and it is personal.
And that's why you hug, like, when you hug and, like, give, like, the multiple cheek kisses, like, especially, like, European countries, right? You're
Yes,
smelling, "Hey, does this vibe, or are you a different tribe? Are you
right,
cool? Are we
right.
cool?"
Right, and you're up close enough to the person where you can actually smell them. You gotta eat food with them. These are all wicked
Mhm,
intimate acts, you know what I mean?
yeah.
You may not think much about, "Oh, we had lunch." That's intimate. You're both shoving stuff in your face
Oh,
hole.
yeah.
What
Well,
I
and,
mean?
like, too, when you can't eat something, if, like, you're sick or food allergies, like, I couldn't eat food with people for, like, years and years, and, like, it throws you, and you're not part of the tribe anymore, and then being able to eat with people again, I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm with my family again."
Right,
It's
right,
huge.
right. The
Breaking
tribe,
bread.
and even if you have a dietary regimen like myself, where I'll go off and eat by myself sometimes, it's
Mhm,
still I'm aware that I was in a tribal setting. I was
mhm,
aware that if I'm sick, the tribe will carry me because the tribe takes care of its own. It is
mhm,
personal. It's deeply personal, and you better freaking show up. You know what I
mhm,
mean? And now that you did show up, they pay in the greatest two ways that the tribe pays, three ways: protection, food and resources, and
yeah,
affection.
yeah.
The tribal caring affection is like no other. I mean, it's like people will move mountains for that affection.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So it gets a lot of work done in the tribe, and it's good stuff. Yep.
Alright. You wanna read this one?
Sure. Healing defined ego center blocks. My purpose is to manifest desires and inspire others to believe in their own worth and their effortless abundance. It is about abundance. Every tribe is abundant unless they're falling apart.
Well, and, like, the purpose of the tribe is like, "Hey, we need to have resources. You need to develop those resources and trade those resources with other tribes for the ongoing survival of the tribe and distributing those resources," right? That's why it's like the tribe is like, "Hey, everyone has a place, but know your place and participate, and you contribute what and how you can, and then you will be taken care of in the other ways," right? It's like this whole ecosystem.
Absolutely. It's a thing.